Catherine, thank you so much for celebrating the 22nd Happiness Happens Month with us. I met you recently on LinkedIn based on one of your stories that ended up in my feed, and it just inspired me so much. I had to reach out to you because it reflected honorable, which is one of our 31 types of happiness. And a lot of times people may not think that being honorable is actually happy, but in the end, when we do the right thing, we always feel good about it. And ultimately, that's how I sort of define happiness, is when we feel naturally good in the moment. So
that's a good definition. Yeah, I like that.
Yes. Those moments, yeah, they can change. But being honorable is sometimes hard, especially at work. But it can even be hard with our significant other, our kids, our parents, our friends, because it's about doing the right thing. And sometimes that means, taking a harder path. So you shared a story, and I don't want to give away your story, of a time that you were honorable as a leader. And I think it'll inspire others. But if you have, a couple other stories on that topic you want to interject, you certainly can. But the one story I would really, like I said, I think it'll resonate for a lot of people who are having to sometimes make tough choices at work about doing the right thing.
And first of all, thank you for the compliment. That's not how I saw it at the time. I just saw it as practical and the obvious thing to do. But thank you. Thank you for the compliment. And I do want to preface before I get into my story that I do have the permission of the other person involved to share this. There was a lot of concern around that when I posted the story. Yes, I do have permission to share this story. So what happened was I was working with an organization internally, building out a national recruiting team for them. It was really exciting, great project. And I came in one day, and one of my leads, who was fantastic team person, just really always the go-getter, positive energy, all of this, you could just tell something was wrong. He was being kind of aggressive, snippy, just darting all over the place, not his usual self. And I thought, okay, something's going on. Let's find out what it is. I immediately assumed just something was wrong. So I brought him in. I said, hey, just come here can you come here for just a minute? Called him over, and he came in and he sat down and just chatting. Good morning, how are you? And he was polite, but still the responses were still kind of abrupt, right? So I was going, okay. So I said, okay, so tell me, I'm noticing that you're different today, and I'm not, upset, but just tell me what's going on. What's happening? And nothing would have prepared me for him to respond to me. My wife tried to kill herself last night. It hit, you know what I mean? It's one of those things that when it lands, you just have to sit there for a moment. There was not an immediate response or an immediate recovery. I wish I was that smooth, but I'm just not. So, right. Yeah. It was a little shocking, not what you're expecting to hear. You're expecting to hear, oh, I have car trouble or, whatever. So I just sat for a minute. And then I asked him first, how are you? How is she? And we kind of had that whole conversation, and we dove into it. And then I looked and said, okay, so why are you here? And I didn't mean it as a criticism. I thought about it later, and I was like, man, I really could have worded that better. That sounded probably a little criticizing. But it just kind of occurred to me, like, wait a minute. This guy's wife is in the hospital fighting for her life, and he's here. What's going on? And his response to me was, I'm out of PTO and I can't afford, especially now, to miss the money. And we worked at a company that was not very good with its people or its people policies. And they had I'd forgotten this part of the story until later. Somebody else reminded me that had been involved. They had actually reset his PTO when he moved to my department too. So we would have had more. It's not like he just irresponsibly used all of his PTO randomly, which I don't think is a thing anyway, but I digress. So, we're talking, and I realized that this man who's the love of his life is literally fighting for her life. And he feels like he has to be there to pay for everything instead of being there to take care of her, which was so responsible of him. Like full kudos to him for thinking like that and thinking, no, I still need to make sure that we're taken care of and our house is okay. But that's awful. And nobody should ever have to make that their priority. So I looked at him and I said, okay, go home. I said, don't worry about it. Your job is fine. Your paycheck will be full. Go. And he kind of looked at me and said, but I said, I got you. Go. And he did. And he went. And I then did what a lot of people would consider to be very questionable, which is that I basically treated his time card as that he was doing offsite work, gave him his full hours, and on we went. I don't regret it. You know, I've had people say to me, "Oh, that was an unethical thing to do," and I said, "Not according to me, it wasn't. The unethical part to me was that the company was not taking care of their people, and it was ridiculous. That's ridiculous. That you should never have to make the choice between being there when somebody you love is fighting for their life and your job. That shouldn't be a thing, especially when it's so short term. We're talking about a few days. That's ridiculous. So I don't have a problem with what I did. And I've always been proud of what I did. And it was a very easy choice. It never occurred to me not to do that. That was the obvious thing to do. And so we went on. He matured in his career there, went on to have a wonderful career managing and recruiting, fantastic human. And that company went on to be reported by myself and multiple other people to the point that they got fined into oblivion and had to make and basically had to sell because of just some of the other things that they had going on. But, you know, I've had people compliment me about that story, and I appreciate it. You know, I like, you know, it makes me feel good that other people see value in what I did. But really what hits me about that story is that I shouldn't have had to make that choice.
Oh no, and I think that's what makes it so honorable that you did. So,
people are like, but you could have been fired. And I'm like, oh God, if I had been fired for that, great. I'd hold my head up high and go, okay, you know, just walk out of there like, no problem, cool beans. You know, nothing's worth your integrity. Nothing is worth your integrity. My job, not worth my integrity, not in the least. No job is worth my integrity. There's always another job, always.
Yeah, no, and I think that's what makes that story so unique, because even in our people-centric work culture right now, there are still companies that do not have policies in place that give the managers the flexibility to do what they feel is right. And again, right. That's what's honorable about it. It's doing what you feel is right, and what, you know, and sometimes, like I said, you could have been thinking, oh, I might lose my job, but you were actually thinking about this person and this person's well-being and this person's future. And he was, you know, probably concerned about insurance and, like you said, paying the mortgage and things like that. So it was fortunate that he crossed paths with you, and that you were, again, honorable, because what you could have been if you weren't, you would have just been adding pressure to him.
Yep.
In an already beyond pressure cooker situation.
I've seen the reverse of that happen. And it's almost shocking to me that anyone that calls themselves a leader in any capacity could fathom doing anything different. You know, I've had people say, oh, well, you know, you should have gone to the company to see. I already knew. Okay, I dealt with this company. I already knew what they were going to say. I already knew what they were going to do. There was no going to them. Plus, then that's quite a red flag if I end up going ahead and helping him out now, isn't it? You know, so like I said, I know what I did was devious, and I accept that and I own that. But to your point, I mean, to me, it was the obvious choice. You know, you put humanity first. And to me, honestly, I was doing my job. I've had people, well, you weren't doing your job. Yes, I was. My job was to support my team. That is very literally the job of a manager. That's your whole job, as a matter of fact. And so I did. I supported my team and it worked and he was effective and he came back a few days later, worked remotely, actually did work remotely for a while. And then came back into the office and he was successful again. I mean, what would have been the better choice to let him go? How does that serve anybody, including the company? That's just stupid.
Exactly.
You know?
Exactly. Like I said, honorable is always one of those things that has long-term,
Yeah.
a ripple effect that's long-term and usually positive. So thank you for sharing that wonderful, wonderful story about being honorable, because like I said, so many times we just kind of choose to hide in those situations. So I so appreciate that. And I can tell by the way you told the story, you felt good about it. So my new book, Practical Happiness, 4 Principles to Improve Your Life, was released in January. So one of the principles is happiness is personal. And I think we often do 2 things when we're thinking in terms of that. One is we think if something makes us happy, we automatically want it to make everyone else we love happy. And that doesn't always work. You know, we're sharing our happiness, but it might not be their personal, and vice versa. Sometimes we don't respect that other things don't make, you know, we don't respect somebody else's things that make them happy because we're like, I don't want to go see that scary movie with you again. And just because happiness is personal doesn't mean that we never do anything we don't want to do, or it doesn't top our top 10 happiness list.
Right.
Because there's other things that fall into giving and love and things like that, that if, you know, going to the beach with your kids because they want to go to the beach and you're like, I don't like sand in my toes, you still go. You still sometimes go because of that. But what is one of your happiness is personals?
Actually, it's funny, you hit on a couple of them. So, you know, I love going to the beach and I love horror movies. Huge horror movie buff. But actually, I'm going to pick kind of one of the more, I think, unusual ones that not everybody shares. And one of them for me that's really big is animal rescue. So I've, and what I mean by that, it's not that I just adopt people go, oh, I'm into animal rescue, I adopt animals. Okay, thank you very much. We all appreciate that, but that's not what I mean. What I mean is I actually foster the animals and take care of them before they go to a home. And sometimes, and actually a couple of the specialties that my husband and I have developed is that we work with emotionally needy animals. So animals that were abused, things like that, and animals who are in hospice. So in other words, they don't get to have a home. We're their last stop before they cross the rainbow bridge. And a lot of people are like, oh, that's so depressing. It's so hard. It's so awful. And it can have hard days, but it's such a joy. It's such a joy to get to have that time and to have those experiences and watch an animal go from cowering in the corner to running up to everyone they meet for hugs. And, you know, to take a little animal that, you know, lived on the street for years and years and give them a home and treats and love in their last few days. It's a wonderful blessing. And it's a real source of happiness to be part of that. So I think that would be kind of one of my more special points of happiness that are very personal to me.
And especially on the hospice rescues, I'm going to say that also falls in that category of being honorable. That's, you know, doing the right thing. Ironically, you know, it falls into that because I do think there's 2 great honors in life. And one is when you're with someone when they're born, you're part of that first group of people to see a birth, but also when you're with somebody, or including pets, when they're taking their last breath.
There is something, and I've been there quite a few times. And I've been there for the births. I have had fosters born into my hands, very literally. I have been the first thing that a puppy saw in its little life. I was laying there, realized his eyes were about to open, held him on my chest, and I had bottle fed this baby, you know, all this. And then he opens his eyes and I'm the first thing he sees and his little tail starts wagging, you know. And it's a really cool experience. Those are very precious moments in life. Absolutely.
Yeah, that is a joyful moment. So now our third principle, actually there's 4 principles and so this interview will cover 3 of them. The second one is happiness zappers are manageable. And in the book, I describe what we call a ZAP map, which is a zapper management action plan. But I divide ZAP, just like I divide happiness into 31 types, I divide happiness zappers into 5 categories of unhappiness, stress, chaos, fear, and annoyances. So is there one of those that you have maybe a tip on how to help people through?
Ooh.
Um,
Um, I, you know, eh, I always love these questions because I think what works for me does not work for most other people. But I will tell you one that I think does universally work. Um, and this can actually be used for several of them. And it's what's called a grounding exercise. So a grounding exercise is when you, for instance, outside of my window, I can see a tree. And if I'm feeling very frustrated and very aggravated, I can look at that tree and just focus on it and go, okay, the tree has beautiful green leaves and they're kind of an oblong shape and they connect the branch, which is brown and long and thin. And basically, and I love and I enjoy how the leaves are rustling in the wind. And I like the sound that that makes. And just focus on that and breathe. Also, you can touch things and do a tactile version of grounding. And when you do that, your brain refocuses and it actually helps you to breathe better and it helps your brain to relax and to focus on something that is real and something that is not stressful. And it's very important that it also be something very real. So, just imagining something in your mind doesn't work quite as well. It works better to actually be looking at something that your brain can fixate on. So that's one of my best tips is grounding exercises.
That is great. Thank you so much, Katherine, for spending this time with me and for celebrating Happiness Happens Month with us. And I hope you're having an extra happy Happiness Happens Month.
Thank you so very much for having me. I really enjoyed the experience.